of nights. It wasn't mailed out in your packet, I know, but I've indicated to you at the last 3 board meetings you were going to be getting an update on BART, on VTA BART and where we're going, and so we're doing that. We just came out of a long 2-day meeting with VTA Monday and Tuesday, so between Bob Mitroff and his team, we just put this together, so that's why it wasn't in the package. I just wanted to clarify that. So this is the 3rd meeting in a row that we've provided an update on where we are with our efforts with VTA and bringing the extension online down there. So there's about I don't know, a dozen slides here, and Bob and I are just going to trade this thing off as we go through that. So on Monday and Tuesday of this week, just this past couple of days ago here, we, about a half dozen or 8 BART employees, participated in a twin bore construction workshop down in San Jose, and its sole focus, what's the next slide, Bob? Here we go here. It was really, the day 1 was the background. You can read this, the background, but the day 2 on Tuesday was really the focus of the workshop, and it was to brainstorm how we could make the twin bore option the best option that we could make the twin bore option. We set aside the single bore. That's going to happen in a parallel process. This was solely for the twin bore. At the highest level, directors, we're trying to make the single bore the very best single bore option that we can make. You heard the general manager at the last board meeting say, if we can make the single bore option work, we're going to make it work. It's, you know, plan A, but we always have a plan B, and plan B is the very best twin bore option that we can make, and that's what we were focusing on all day Monday and all day Tuesday down in San Jose. And so the panelists on there, there was folks from LA Metro. There were a couple of consultants that have, 40 years of experience in building tunnels. There were 2 of them. There was somebody from Sound Transit, and then somebody that was retired from LA Metro and hard out in Hawaii. And so fairly well, very good skill sets on the panel, a lot of experience on the panel, and we spent the better part of those 2 days brainstorming on how to build that and make that option the best option that we could make it. So, Bob, what's the next slide? So, Bob, why don't you take it from here?
Okay, just to refresh your memories, we've been working cooperatively with VTA staff and their consultants, and when I say we, I'm meaning multiple departments at BART, including not just PD&C and the Deputy General Manager, but we've got significant representation from maintenance and engineering operations, safety, our accessibility people. So we had a sort of a briefing workshop on how the twin bore alignment that was shelved back in 2008 came to be, what all the assumptions were on the station construction. And we had a similar meeting just last week on the 30th on single bore, where we went through the history of the development of that project alignment. We looked at a number of alternatives where we're trying to meet VTA in the middle on a number of important criteria. For us, I mean, the big thing for us is that we want side-by-side trackway. And to the extent we could get it, we want to have center platforms at all the stations. So we were working through different ways that we can modify the single bore alternative to get to something that both sides can have a consensus on. So the workshop, as Bob just described it, was brainstorming with outside experts as well as the team of BART and VTA consultants. We reviewed the twin bore approach as it evolved between 2002 to 2008, and most of the focus here is on the downtown San Jose station. Everybody was pretty much fine with the design for the Alamrock and Diridon subway stations. And what we were trying to do, as far as minimizing impacts is concerned, was we were looking at a number of factors. We were looking at the time that the impact would take place and the magnitude of the impact, and we were looking at 3 separate levels of impact: pedestrian, access for pedestrians to the downtown buildings. We were looking at the ability for VTA to maintain their cross light rail traffic from the north side to the south side of Santa Clara Street, and vehicular traffic. So we're trying to optimize on a variety of respects.
So
Here,
let me
sure.
just grab this one. So, so directors, there's, as you know, it's that's the alignment for the phase 2 here, and the stations there. Alum Rock Station by the east portal, the downtown station, Diridon Station, then we pop up at Santa Clara. So what Bob was saying about there's general consensus when you're talking about, so everybody's got the same base knowledge. When you're talking about the twin bore option, the challenge is at one station along that whole, it's like 5 mile alignment. It's at one station. It's at the downtown station, and it's how to build that box that I'm going to show in the next, at that one station. We have plenty of real estate at the Alum Rock Station and the Diridon Station for lay down to get in there and do the work. Everybody's in agreement there that that is not major drama. The drama is how to build that in downtown. So just that's the task at hand for the twin bore. I just want to make sure that you understand that's the big challenge with the twin bore. Okay, so the next one, and so the question is, here's a picture of what we're trying to build for the twin bore. As Mr. Mitroff mentioned, it's a center platform side by side, but we need to construct that box in downtown, and so that was what the workshop was. How do we go about building that and minimize the street impacts to the businesses, to the pedestrians? And so you have to go in and you have to put those sidewalls in, and then you have to go in and construct the box and try to maintain some semblance of traffic on the top. So that's what, when people talk about, twin bore and single bore, for the twin bore, it comes down to that one station and how do you build this, okay? And so the next slide, and just to get it in your head on what the limits of that we're talking to, just up there on the slide, the street that we're talking about is along Santa Clara, and it really runs from 4th Street, which is on the left of that slide, to Market Street. And to put it in perspective, it's about 3.5, 4 football fields long. That's kind of the length that we're talking about here that we're trying to construct. So there was a lot of discussion about a block by block approach. So Bob, you want to just highlight, just pick a block, Bob, with your highlighter, that block. So we take that block, and traffic and pedestrian, you may always maintain pedestrian flow on that block, but you close that to traffic. You put your sidewalls in, you put a deck on it, and then you march along San Jose or Santa Clara to the right, and you open up that block again. And so that's one approach on trying to minimize the amount of disruption to the businesses. I think it was a given down there, Bob, and make sure I'm saying this correctly, that we were always, under any brainstorming, going to maintain pedestrian traffic along both sidewalks there and ADA access. So it was a good 2-day discussion about, is that the way to do it? Is a better way to do it to go longitudinally and take half the street and have traffic on the other half of the street and then flip it over and do the same thing? That was an option that was discussed there. And then the other option that had a long discussion was, if you're really looking at trying to minimize the impacts, do you do it all at one time? And get in there, close it, put your deck on, and open it as soon as you can. And so, kind of a trade-off of construction duration and intensity versus impacts on the business. If you go with a short construction duration, high intensity, you're going to have significant impacts on the businesses, but you're done a heck of a lot sooner. And then it's just the converse the other way. So those were the discussions that we were that were had at this 2-day workshop down there. It was a good discussion. It was very open and transparent. And I think the next steps is they were going to assemble all of their work and try to quantify the discussions that were had and kind of the next steps there. Bob, did I get that about right?
Yeah, yeah. At the end, we had a list of about 15 potential modifications you could make to the twin bore construction plan, which could achieve the goal of minimizing the street impacts. So VTA is going to follow up with us on that.
Okay.
Is there more to that slide? Because the key doesn't
Yeah, there's a whole
explain
Director,
what's on the
I'm
slide.
so sorry, President Rayburn. It's not the I, it's the collective. We grabbed this and pulled this together last night. This is from a bigger PowerPoint, and it had animation that went step by step that you could see how the construction was going to proceed down Santa Clara Avenue. I just grabbed one slide to explain it. I did not, it would have been a whole day meeting just on this construction sequencing, but. That's the intention. That's why I did it this way. So
Right, there's some interesting sort of local constraints that you're dealing with there. One is that this area right here is a historic district. You've got the original Bank of Italy building here and a number of historic properties along there, and then you have a potential issue of basements from those historic buildings moving into the station box area. So that's a constraint you have to deal with. And another issue you have with this site is the fact that there's a height limitation on all these buildings. I think they said it was 23 stories.
Yeah.
Because right here, as you get closer towards Diridon, you're in the flight path to San Jose International. So we were working through all of these constraints, trying to optimize the layout and the period for the construction impacts. So following up on that, like VTA is going to gather together all the refinements that were proposed, and hopefully we come up with a better alternative for twin bore. And in addition, we are going to be having a couple of meetings over the next 2 weeks with technical staff. This Tuesday, we're going to be looking at the design fire load issues for those stations, points of safety, and ventilation issues. And then the meeting on the following week is going to look at our operations procedures for tunnel safety and emergency evacuations crossovers.
So keep going. So here's the schedule. Always like to keep the board apprised of where you're going to be asked to weigh in and make a decision and provide direction for us. So the VTA board is going to be asked to approve the project in early April of 2018, and that really is going to focus on, for this board, the tunneling methodology and the description of that. And then after that, the BART board will be asked to accept or not accept the VTA adopted project and move forward with it. So you're post VTA, to be clear, and that is going to happen in April, with the anticipated record of decision sometime in June. So April's a big month for you on how this all is going to shake out. But I would go to the next slide, Bob. I want to make sure the board is tracking here. So there's probably not a hotter topic going on right now in our daily workings with VTA than to finalize the O&M agreement. And it is definitely linked to revenue service, and it is like any negotiations. It's sometimes it's very, very contentious. We're looking out after BART interests, and they're looking out after VTA's interests. So some of these negotiation sessions are very long, and they're very contentious. I don't have another word for that right now, but it's very hot topic right now, and when we come back to the board 2 weeks from today, President Rayburn, that will be the underpinning of our BART VTA update. Will be where we are on this O&M agreement, moving forward on the schedule for the O&M agreement, and just so you know, the schedule for the O&M is definitely tied to the schedule for revenue service. They're not uncoupled, right? Be good to have the O&M agreement in place when we're ready to go to revenue service. And you heard, it looks like right now for revenue service that they're going to VTA will turn over the project testing sometime in March to BART.
But we know, just to your comment, they're interested in getting the